Lakeland PBS presents Common Ground, brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota. Production funding of Common Ground is made possible in part by First National Bank Bemidji, continuing their second century of service to the community. Member FDIC. Welcome to Common Ground. I'm producer-director Scott Knudsen. In this first of two episodes, which symbolize my love letter to Itasca State Park, we visit the University of Minnesota's Itasca Biological Station.
The Itasca Biological Station is part of the College of Biological Sciences at the University of Minnesota.
The Itasca Biological Station is important to students at the University of Minnesota because it can really help us study the environment around us. And with global warming and climate change being such a huge issue in the world right now, it really can help us see how humans can impact the area around us and how we can really mitigate some of the negative impacts we're having on the environment.
Well, this is an example of a place doing basic science. A lot of the research action that's here is to go out and observe. We're in a state park with a lot of rules in terms of what you can and can't do, and so we've, for a very long time, been kind of a center for doing basic research, and I'm a big fan, a proponent of doing basic research because this is information. We're gathering information about these natural systems that we care about, and we can pretty much all get on board with that. We just need to know more about how they work so that we can enable conservation of those natural places and those organisms. So that basic research often, when it's being done, doesn't have a clear and immediate use. And often it's later that some of this information then gets harnessed. And so the best things we can do as the biologists out here doing it is to be thorough and then to share. And when we share that information, we may never know where it goes. And increasingly, it's not only to land managers, but it's to people like artists or those that are doing social science or even just communicating science. It's how we got where we are today, which was getting a greater grasp on our natural world so that we could then enable ourselves to benefit from it later, as well as to conserve it for the future.
I'm Leslie Knoll. I'm the station biologist at the Itasca Biological Station, and I'm also adjunct faculty in plant and microbial biology. Right now we're at the field station overlooking Lake Itasca behind us. What I do here is I play a lot of different roles. I do research myself on lakes, so I have an interest in lake research. I also help all of the visiting researchers that come up here as well as the classes, and I help conduct public programming with the park and community visitors.
My name is Sarah Henry, and I came up originally as a student to take field classes in May 2017, and I came back this summer to take more field classes and then start a research project on flying squirrels. I just graduated this spring with a degree in ecology, evolution, behavior, and environmental science, and I'm applying to dental school right now. So my hopes, after coming to Itasca, I realized that I wanted to do more rural medicine and focus more on rural areas. And so I'm hoping to open my own practice in northern Minnesota and work with people up near Itasca.
My name is Jonathan Schilling. I'm a professor in the Plant and Microbial Biology Department at the University of Minnesota on the St. Paul campus. I'm also the director of this place, which is the Itasca Biological Station and Laboratories. So I'm a mycologist. I study fungi. That is the study of fungi. I came around to studying and teaching about mycology by studying larger scale system dynamics. It's called biogeochemistry. I was interested in large scale nutrient cycling, patterns that happen over ecosystem scales, and I began to refine my questions down to very organism-driven dynamics, things that happen because of individual organisms, and in my case, often the fungi. So that's where I became knowledgeable about the fungi, and I've kind of grown to love them.
We're a field station, which means we're embedded in a natural environment. So we're embedded in Itasca State Park. And so we support classes for the University of Minnesota or outside the University of Minnesota, as well as do community outreach. So we engage with the public through various public programming.
So my position involves doing research and teaching back in the city. In St. Paul, and that's my mycological research and teaching mycology classes. And the director position is mostly a summer gig, at least in terms of contact time up here at Itasca. So this year I was up mid-May, and I'll be here through Labor Day with the family and engaged in teaching, research, and also actually engagement. So that's the job. There's a little bit involved with sweeping the front walkway and making sure the lights are on. And then there is some in terms of imparting some kind of vision for the station, which is really a location that's been here for over 100 years. It's very much focused on conservation. As a field station, we're part of a network of field stations. So most larger universities will have some iteration of what is going on at Itasca as a field station, and that's a place to go out and be in nature, a place to have more benchmark science where you have less disruption or disturbed habitats so that you can do research to get a sense for maybe what it should look like if we hadn't been there to disturb it. So I usually use that as a description that connects it, more than isolating it from the cities, it connects it to a network of field stations. And I would describe it as a place per our mission to do teaching, research, and engagement. Again, at a distance from the city and in a place. And that's the essence of doing place-based research and teaching.
There's so many different things you can study up here. So you have the lake in back of you, and you can research fish and stuff to do with the water and circulation over the environment. You can study all the different organisms we have here, from bugs to mammals to birds, bees. You can do research projects, and then when you come back at the end of the day, you can go fishing in your free time, go swimming, paddle boarding, we have kayaks, and just enjoy everything there is about northern Minnesota and how beautiful it is. I came here because I originally got a scholarship from my college to take mammalogy and ecology 2 years ago in the summer, and then I came back up here to work that same summer and then again this summer and do a research project on my own. I research flying squirrels. Yeah, flying squirrels, there's 2 species in Minnesota. So I research the southern species that we see in Itasca now that we didn't really see in the past, and that's a big change that's happened in the environment here, and so I'm researching how that's impacting the other species in Minnesota.
We have mostly university students that come here, as well as faculty and their families, so the instructors that are teaching. Researchers from all over the country and sometimes world are here. So we have a lot of different visitors. We also welcome researchers or groups from other organizations, like we had the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources here just last week learning about aquatic vegetation and how to identify it. So we have a wide span of users.
My name is Abby.
A student can expect, I think, a lot of things if they come to Itasca State Park to take classes here. We often get feedback from students as far back as the 1960s that say this was their most memorable, notable experience in their whole college career. So students might say that they're, learning in the environment and just being able to do science in the real world, out in the field, that's something very notable for them. Learning from faculty, seeing faculty do projects out in the field is very memorable. Just getting to know their cabin mates and the others taking classes, there's a real strong sense of community that builds at this field station as well as field stations all over the place.
Along with being a previous student up at the Itasca Station and a current researcher here, I am one of the senior peer mentors of Nature of Life, which is a freshman orientation program we have within the College of Biological Sciences in the month of July. So we'll have about 650 incoming freshman students that are coming to the University of Minnesota. They'll come up for a 4-day experience with current faculty in our college and then current students, and then we'll get them more involved in our college so they can get established before they come in September and actually start their college career.
The station is really set up for students to be able to capitalize on their free time. Me too, actually. It's a great spot if you want to just get in a hammock and sit by the lake and let the breeze blow across, which is done quite often, sometimes in stacks of 3 or 4 hammocks. So there's a lot of stuff to do that involves kind of relaxation, and then there's quite a bit to do for recreation. And the lake is here. All of the facilities in the state park are available for students to come up and have a good time doing biking and paddleboarding and kayaking and things like that too. So quite often the students will engage themselves in anything along that range of relaxation and recreation, but a large proportion of it happens outside. So for students who know that that's what they love, it's a really special place to do that.
Outside of the academic classes, we actually offer quite a bit of recreational opportunities for the students to give them something to do and also let them enjoy where they're at. So we've got canoes, kayaks, paddle boards to get out on the water, volleyball, all sorts of recreational opportunities on our athletic field. We also have bikes, so they can go along Wilderness Drive or explore the really nice bike paths that the park has.
As a student up here, we usually get up pretty early in the morning, can see the sunrise some days, and have breakfast, and then we have usually classes in the morning, and we'll go out and do field research in the afternoon and then come back in and then have the rest of the night on our own to fish or paddleboard and do stuff like that.
So the students are in bunkhouses and they are lined up on the lake. There's a bell that rings when the food is served in the dining hall, and the dining hall staff is super warm. A really engaging bunch. It's going to feel like camp in a lot of ways. And at the same time, you don't typically see this at camp when you're at the dinner table. People are talking about leech biology or the types of fish that they gill netted, or the types of mushrooms that were found on the Schoolcraft Trail. So it's camp for biology type nerds, and it's one of the best things about this place. And so as people are cruising around, they often look relaxed, but they may or may not know it, but their brains are usually pretty engaged in their subjects. And that's again because they're sort of immersed in it. So there's a lot of camaraderie among the students that are here as well as the faculty. There are a lot of impromptu gatherings and things that people do together just because. And so it's a very easygoing kind of environment that, again, is conducive to learning.
We have students who come back to visit all the time. Every summer, I'm running into students who took classes here from the 1950s, 60s, 70s, up to, just a few years ago. And they are so excited to come back and see the cabin that they stayed in, or notice that things really haven't changed that much. The cabins still look the same, the buildings still look the same, Itasca is still beautiful. So we have lots of folks that come back to visit after they graduate and have been away for decades or longer.
As a student, we definitely choose to come up here, and it's not something we have to do in the College of Biological Sciences, but there are, I'd say, a bit cooler classes up here.
So the field biology courses are one of the most special things that we do here at Itasca Station. They've been going on as the field biology courses since 1935, and before then were the forestry sessions dating back to 1909. These are hands-on experiences for students. They're very place-focused, so they get outside and learn about the Itasca region by, again, getting their hands dirty and their feet wet. These are some of the most influential courses, I think, in a student's career, and I can attest to that myself as having taken field courses at a biological station. These are moments that you'll remember because, again, you're immersed in your study subjects, and you get to share that with professors who are relaxed and enjoying those times as well. It's a real shared experience and something very special that we have here.
Okay, I think we are ready. We have 6 pails of sponges, right? So Dom, can you be responsible for the sponges, a pail of sponges for our team? And so let's load up and head out.
On May 30th, Dr. Brian Wissenden took the animal behavior course out to visit an isolated lake to explore fish brains.
Heavy, so I've been here since the summer of 2000, teaching animal behavior to generations of, well, new animal behaviorists. It's a good place for me to teach as part of that research arc that I've been working on since I got here in 2000. These are full collaborators when it works. They are co-authors on the resulting publication. Today we are going to look at the response of fathead minnows to alarm chemicals that are released when a minnow is attacked by a predator.
Brian Wissenden is a faculty member at Minnesota State University Moorhead, and he teaches our animal behavior class every year. Brian's class really kind of gets off the beaten path.
This is beautiful Deming Lake right here. That's it.
So they explore lakes that aren't as common to get to in the park.
For those of you who haven't been to Deming Lake before, this is a cool lake because it's meromictic, meaning it only partially mixes. It is very, very deep for its surface area, and the perimeter of the lake has these steep embankments, all with these tall trees, so that the wind action on lake surface is quite limited.
So when a student's with an expert in the field, I think there are a couple things that happen. One is that the expert is sort of out in the open without a script. And so they will see how somebody thinks through the process of identifying things, understanding why it's there. So they'll see that process. It also has these extra benefits of being around somebody when they are at their most relaxed. And that is gold. It is very hard to convince people who've never done a course like that how much of an impact that can have to not only show students what it's like to go through that process of discovery, but to share with them kind of the joy.
Yeah, kind of watch your step. There's a lot of little, holes here and there. So
in Brian's animal behavior class, they often are trudging through hiking trails or even sometimes off hiking trails to get to some of the remote lakes that they go to do their studies. So students are prepared. We prepare them well for the bugs that they might experience. Mosquitoes were really bad this year, so they're ready to go with their head nets or whatever else we suggest for preparation. Brian's class does a lot of really interesting animal behavior activities out in the field.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You guys all see the trumpeter swans?
Yeah.
Okay, how's everybody's state of readiness?
Ready.
Everyone good to go? Dom? Okay, let's set. Yeah, pull, yep, go. Toss. Okay, make sure the trap is parallel to shore and lying on its side. Yep, and then tie it off on a branch.
So is that fine then?
That's great. Yep. All right, so time in was 9:34. You can see fish swimming over the trap already. It's only going to be there for an hour, so it doesn't have to be, a super permanent structure. And this is an alarm trap, so they should be smelling that and not going on the trap.
Now, shouldn't it be double blind so the minnows don't know what you're thinking? I'm just kidding.
Yes.
They also sometimes go out and collect spiders and look at territoriality of spiders and spider behavior, as well as projects with dragonflies, birds, all kinds of different critters that we find up here in the park.
I might be biased, but I'd say the faculty that come up here are some of the coolest people at the University of Minnesota. They love to be outside. They are funny and interested in so many different diverse topics, whether it's bugs in the lake to different fruits that you can find in the area. And they're really invested in their students and their learning.
So on May 28th of 2019, Dr. Jim Kottner took out the field microbiology course on the pontoon boat.
Then we get a thermocline change in temperature over depth, and that's basically the rest of the lake.
Jim Kottner is a faculty member at the University of Minnesota in the Ecology, Evolution, and Behavior Department.
So we're putting a buoy out here that's going to measure all kinds of things. So temperature, pH, conductivity, oxygen, so on and so forth.
Jim teaches our field microbiology class along with Jeff Graunik, and he also has been conducting research at Itasca for about 20 years now on lakes in the park.
Julia, would you mind getting that set up?
One thing that the field microbiology class did with Jim Cotner was going out on our pontoon boat, and they would go out in the field and collect samples, and even got to use some really kind of high-tech water sensors that measure all sorts of things in real time. So things like how much algae is in the water, how much oxygen. So they were able to look at that in real fine detail.
So this device here, the data I was showing in class came from this instrument. So it's measuring light levels, and then on the bottom here, it has lots of sensors. Chlorophyll, so as a measure of the amount of algae that's in the water, oxygen, turbidity, pH, and I think that's it. So we deploy this in the water for a long period of time. I have it set up to take a reading every 10 seconds. And what we observed basically is that the CO2 is coming out of the water. So it's sort of like the lake is exhaling, just as you and I exhale. In addition to exhaling CO2, it's also exhaling methane gas. Both of those are important because they're greenhouse gases. And so lakes are pretty important in the global carbon cycle because they play this role in terms of essentially collecting a lot of the material that comes off the landscape and metabolizing it and sort of poofing it off into the atmosphere.
When we go out and take samples of the lake, we can use equipment to measure oxygen content and chlorophyll, so see plants in the water. We can look at the different organism composition and photosynthesizing organisms and how much oxygen and carbon dioxide they'll go through. We can look at sediment samples and see at the bottom of the lake 45 feet down what kind of worms are around or what kind of different bacteria are doing stuff at the bottom of the lake that we can't see. We can also look at water clarity and how conducive the lake is to plant life.
Joe Whitaker is a professor at Concordia College, and he teaches field mammalogy at our field station. His class not only works with mammals in the park, but they also go on several field trips outside of the park to see different types of mammals that you find in different biomes in the region.
The Itasca Biological Station and Lake Itasca are kind of part of the intersection of prairies and then coniferous, and then we also intersect with the deciduous-based forest in Minnesota.
The biomes are a short drive in these different directions to go across the transition, both north and south of the park. So the biome transitions enable you to make comparisons in a short period of time. Those comparisons can be very clear. One would be birds. If you are interested in birds, particularly at that springtime moment for the courses, you can see very different birds in all three biomes and be able to sort of immerse yourself in them as you go along. Well, the Frenchman's Bluff is actually a cool example of a prairie. It's a tall grass prairie that gradually transitions to a short grass prairie at the top of the bluff. And it's a location that is there as a state natural area, largely because of some of the efforts of professors that were working here at the Itasca Station. It's a very special place, a remnant prairie on the bluff, and was being threatened to be used as a gravel pit. And so you can still see the remnants of the gravel pit over there, but through the efforts of the researchers that were here at the station has been preserved as both an SNA and also a nature conservancy site. So it's a very special location, so they get a little bit of history along with a very special visit to the prairie.
Itasca State Park, we're lucky to be here because we're near different biomes. So one biome is the Prairie Biome, just a bit west to us. And Joe Whitaker, he often will take his class to Frenchman's Bluff to explore the small mammals that they can trap there, as well as some of the vegetation and other interesting features of that habitat that we don't find in Itasca State Park.
Yep. All right.
Having access to 3 different biomes makes it really easy to do field research because you can drive an hour in any direction and have completely different environments that have different animals, different bugs, different nutrient compositions. So it makes it really easy to have different research projects and do it all while you're up here.
And another thing that's a real advantage for doing research and teaching up here is also the engagement potential, and that is really enabled by being inside the state park. We have more state park visitors to this state park than any other state park in the state, despite fight its distance. And so I get the question a lot, is it hard to attract people that distance from the city? And I say, well, the state park seems to do just fine. So I think those ecological and historical components of the park and the region are a real draw.
Working at Itasca has, I think, helped me a lot as a scientist, not only because I get to observe the natural world in the natural world, but I also get to interact with so many other scientists. So I might be talking with someone who studies something really outside of what I do, but we can find some common interest or common ground and talk about some ideas, perhaps spur a collaboration. So really being able to be embedded in the natural environment, but also with other folks that are interested in studying the environment who may have a really different perspective. It's really an enriching experience.
My hope for the future is really finding where I can make the biggest impact on the environment I can, whether that has to do with people or just the natural environment. I really hope to do more with sustainability and find a way for humans to live the best lives they can with making the least impact on the environment possible.
Thank you so much for watching. Join us again on Common Ground. If you have an idea for Common Ground in north central Minnesota, email us at legacy@lptv.org or call 218-333-3014. To watch Common Ground online, visit lptv.org and click Local Shows. To order episodes or segments of Common Ground, call 218-333-3020. Production funding of Common Ground was made possible in part by First National Bank Bemidji, continuing their second century of service to the community. Member FDIC. Common Ground is brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money by the vote of the people November 4th, 2008. If you enjoy watching Common Ground online, please consider making a tax-deductible donation at lptv.org.